Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! We should keep that in there. We'll put it in the intro.
Yeah.
Welcome back to me almost annihilating my own son.
Hold me, just like you did in Naboo, York City. In a galaxy not so far away, this is Naboo, York City, hosted by DarthJuliet and Nicole Marisela.
So we're back.
We're so back.
We're so back.
We're
No,
so
literally. We're so back.
Round 2. Here we are. We're doing it. It's real. It's happening. As the intro stated, this is Naboo, York City, with your hosts,
DarthJuliet.
and me, Nicole Marisela. This has been a very, very long time coming. It's been an idea since 2021.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the things that was holding us back was a name.
And we finally got it.
Yeah, this year before we even got the name, this year I was like, okay, we should probably hit the ground running with this podcast if we ever actually want to do it.
Because it will never happen.
And it'll never happen if we don't actually commit to it. And then we were like, okay, we got to get back to that roadblock, that age-old block, the name. So the name came a month ago to me on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was like, this is the perfect marriage of is Naboo one of your favorite planets?
Yeah,
I believe it
is.
And the city that we're actually from. So I was like, I have it. I cracked the Da Vinci Code. Naboo, York City. It makes sense. It's a wordplay. I like puns. I like just things that are satisfying enough to the original thing. So this is how Naboo, York City was born. And a little bit about it, what it's going to be, mostly Star Wars centric. We are both passionate Star Wars fans with both different upbringings of Star Wars and what it means to us as a franchise. So we'll get into that in a second, and I'll let you go first. So we'll be covering all types of media: Star Wars film, series, comic books. I know you're a big fan of Dr. Aphra, and video games that I'm
trying to get into the games.
Yeah. you go through every avenue of any franchise. It's very admirable. So I'm sure you will get there at one point. So that's what the podcast will be about. We'll offer some commentary. We'll share announcements and other teasers and such. And whoever wants to come along with us while we make our way through this galaxy, we hope you stick around because we're really excited about it. Like I said, we're both really passionate about this, and now felt like the right time to get into doing this because there's so many things that we both love that's already come out, characters and movies and series wise. But there's also so much to look forward to. So we'll be doing a mesh of everything that's already come out and everything that is to come out. So before we really sink into the Star Wars media that we do want to talk about in this specific special first episode, I'd love to just kind of introduce ourselves, who we are, what we do, what our journey has been with Star Wars, and kind of how it shapes us who we are today. And I'm going to hand it over to my wonderful, gorgeous, talented, breathtaking, crafty host / bestie, Julia.
Oh, thank
Go
you.
ahead. Take it.
Yes, so I am Julia. I go by DarthJuliet.
The DarthJuliet.
I am a huge Star Wars fan since forever. It's my first love. It'll always be my first love. I am a big nerd for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But Star Wars is my number one.
You've been in this since you were 6 years old.
6 years old.
No, that's not 5, right?
How old were we in 1999?
I was 4 because I'm a December baby. So I feel like you're probably 5.
4 or 5, probably. Yeah. So I didn't have the traditional upbringing into Star Wars. No one really I didn't have my dad didn't get me into Star Wars. I didn't have a friend or an uncle, an aunt, whatever. Mm-hmm. Mine it's kind of funny because it's kind of it's born out of spite.
It's actually I think that's, it's a great origin. It's probably the most petty thing a child at the formative age of 5 could ever do. And I think it's great. So
we had a family friend come visit, and they brought my brother like Star Wars action figures for
Right.
the Phantom Menace. So
Right,
that was like
right.
my first like introduction into Star Wars. It was seeing the Phantom Menace merch. So my brother got these like cool action figures. He eventually got like a Millennium Falcon, and I was like,
That's so sick.
I was so jealous. I was like, where are my toys?
And they were like, these are for boys only.
It's like, what about me? Why don't I get anything?
Right.
And that's how it was born. It was born out of like spite and jealousy.
I'm
Like,
gonna look up everything I could possibly know about this franchise.
no, literally,
Oh,
actually.
jeez.
And yeah, so that's how it became to be. But I remember like, I kind of like subsided a little bit.
Yeah.
Until like Attack of the Clones had come out.
Right. And what
And it-
year was that?
2003?
Like, oh, okay. I was gonna
think.
say that my guess was gonna be 2002.
I think it was like, no, I think it was 2002
Okay.
or 3. I can't remember, but like,
Hey friends, Editing Julia here. I just wanted to clarify that Attack of the Clones came out in 2002, not 2003. Back to the podcast.
it had already come out on DVD.
Oh,
And
yeah, okay.
my mom, my brother, and I, we went to Borders. It's not there
Yes.
anymore.
Yes.
The Times Square building in Columbus Circle. And
That brings back lots of memories. Jeez,
yeah.
Louise.
it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
So, we're like perusing the aisles, and I see it from the corner of my eye, and I'm like, I like let out this gasp. And like, I'm like, I need this DVD. I beg my mom to buy it. She
Yeah.
buys it for me. I watched it like a billion times.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, like when it was like truly like reinforced.
Yeah.
Because I like from that one moment it was there, but like Attack of the Clones. That's why it has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, that movie in specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I remember watching Revenge of the Sith in theaters. I was there.
It was, and that was your first Star Wars movie in the theater,
Yes,
right? When
yes,
it had, when it was in its theatrical.
I was
run.
old enough to be like, Mom, please, let's go.
I feel like that's such a universal experience. like at like
Begging.
just begging your parent to do something that
take
they
you.
could like not know the last thing about, and they're just like, sure.
My mom had no idea what she was taking me to. She was, she like, Star
Yeah.
Wars, okay, like she knows what it is, but like
Yeah.
no idea like who the characters were.
Right.
It's like, okay, let's go. So she took me, and it wasn't even like the first showing. I think like the first
Oh, sure.
week, and it was probably like the second or third, and it was still packed. Wow. I remember like sitting there, like I can like it's a core memory. I can
Yeah,
think back
I
to
mean,
it.
imagine like how far apart the originals and the prequels are from each other. I think it's like that's like 30 years or something. 25 to 30 years, I
Yeah.
think. So I imagine like all the like original trilogy stands who were like packing those theaters, and then like new fans like yourself and other kids.
The ripe old
Yeah.
age of like 9.
Yeah,
I was there
yeah.
freaking out.
Oh my gosh, that's a very interesting conglomerate of fans, old and new, coming together, and it's such an authentic way. Like movie theater going, I feel like isn't as it once was. So I feel like that is definitely an authentic way to like bring all types of fans together. So
Yeah.
how do you feel like all that brought you to where you are now?
So Star Wars never left me.
Yeah.
Like it's always been there for me. Or it's something I always go back to. Growing up, it was kind of hard because
Oh, sure.
being like a female Star Wars fan is not the greatest.
Right.
There was I think
Even
a
today,
time.
it's still sometimes kind of odd to
I think we have
maneuver.
a better sense of community now than
Oh,
we did
yeah.
before.
The internet is really strong in
Yeah.
that way. Carries a lot of community for sure.
But growing up, it was there were times where it was kind of hard to like be a fan because of just being a girl.
Yeah.
Because like you'd be like, oh, are you really a fan? Like I'll quiz you on this, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Name all planets
No.
in the system of so and so if you're a real Star Wars.
it was definitely like that. But it was always there, so I
Yeah.
always loved it. And like also growing up, I love Halloween and like
Yeah.
would always like make my own costumes and like dress up, and like I think that really helped transition to me into cosplaying.
Right. Because
so-
Julia is a cosplayer.
Cosplayer.
Fantastic cosplayer. And I say this because you make so many of your own
Like little props and
costumes
things.
and props. But I mean, there's lots of stuff that you put together that really sends the message of who you're cosplaying. Like your Mando in 2020. That was like
Yeah.
your first time with like real
That was like a
materials.
real my first time building something
Yeah,
from like
there you go. That's
just
what
like
I meant.
templates and like foam,
Yeah,
contact
yeah.
cement, all those things, and like
And like your flight suit was like a inmate suit,
Yeah.
right? Like it was a classic orange jumpsuit or whatever. And
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have guessed looking at those photos. Like you turned it into a flight
I
suit.
did. It's funny because on the back it says inmate on
Yeah.
it, but like I painted like a rebel sign. It's also like
Oh, that's smart.
I have like the little jacket over it, so you don't really see it.
Oh, yeah,
But
exactly.
just in
The white
case
vest.
it comes off,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
rebel sign in the back.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And where can people find all the stuff that you do, all the cosplays and your little contents?
my little contents. You can find me at DarthJuliet on Instagram and TikTok, and yeah,
Yeah,
I mean those are like the main two that I use. I don't use
Yeah.
anything else.
those are the main avenues. I feel.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because I feel like my experience is like on the other side of the spectrum of yours. We do share in common the fact that like we didn't have somebody in the family
traditional
introduce you.
yeah.
Like I didn't have the older brother who was like, "Yo, I love Star Wars. You gotta sit down and watch it." Or I didn't have the uncle who was like, "I need to indoctrinate you and you gotta watch the originals." You know what I
Funny
mean?
because my brother's older than I am, and I was the
Right.
one who was like, "Let's get into Star Wars."
Yeah, and he was like, "Sure, whatever,
Yeah.
nerd." Yeah, but no, I didn't have that at all growing up. And funny enough, the franchise that was a lot more popular in my household was Lord of the Rings, and those are just diabolically much longer than the Star Wars movies. So, like at 8 years old, of course, I'm not going to be able to sit and pay attention to those. So, even though I was familiar with Lord of the Rings more than Star Wars, again, I wasn't like indoctrinated into that kind of stuff. It really wasn't until I was a fully formed adult when The Mandalorian came out. I feel like that's a lot of recent fans' introduction to Star Wars as well. Like
Definitely,
full adults getting into The Mandalorian. To paint the picture, it was November 2019. Disney Plus had just become a thing, and Mandalorian season 1 was being promoted, and it was like the first of its kind, first Star Wars live action
yeah.
series. And I remember my fiance, who's just in the corner over there, who's being very gracious and helping us run this whole thing. I remember, I remember him saying something along the lines of like, "Listen, I know you're not a big franchise person. I know that you don't really know Star Wars that much. However, Pedro Pascal is the Mandalorian. He's amazing." And before he kept going, I was like, "Who?"
It's actually funny because
Yeah,
I knew him from Game of
Game of
Thrones.
Thrones, exactly. I had no idea who he was talking about. I was, who is this Pedro person? And he was like, "Okay, forget that. Let me just try to get you into Star Wars because this is a very unique story. This is a character that's not like religiously attached to any of the trilogies or like characters really, and it takes place in a very specific part of the timeline, and I can fill you in on everything that you don't know. I'll tell you all about the Empire, this and this and that. Please just try for me. I really want to see if like this show is worth all the hype that's surrounding it."
And it was.
And funny enough, I was really reluctant about it because I was like, okay, fine. Like if I don't have to follow much, okay, like let's try it. And of course, as we're going along, he fills me in on a bunch of different things about the Empire and this and this and this. And because my basic understanding of Star Wars before all that was just lightsabers and Jedis and funny weird little creatures like Grogu and Yoda. So I think it was a really great way, even though I was an adult, to be introduced to Star Wars because there is so much more to Star Wars than just lightsabers and Jedis and little creatures. So I remember I enjoyed it a lot because again he was really gracious enough to just fill me in on a bunch of different lore and world building facts. And then I remember that ended, and then the pandemic, everything was locked down, and then that's when he really took his chance.
He was like, "This is it."
And he was like,
It's
"All right,
time."
we have all the time in the world. You have no excuse. We will be watching all the movies.
Lock in. No, we're gonna lock in.
You're locked in now. We're watching all the movies. We're going to go from release order, and then we're going to try to watch as many of the animated shows as possible." And I was like, okay, again, very reluctant, but also kind of like, I mean, sure, like I enjoyed a bit of it. I enjoyed, putting my toe in the water. So why not? Let's keep going. And I don't like anything in a normal amount. So once I'm exposed to something enough, I'm in it. And then I truly, truly was locked in. And I feel like the pandemic was such a weird measurement of time because it was these few years, but it felt like forever because I had so much time to really take in all these movies and watch all these shows and get to know all these characters. So even though I was sort of like a little resentful and kind of like felt like I missed out on a childhood with these types of franchises, I felt like I made up for lost time in a way. And I really do have him to thank for that because again, he was begging to really get me to enjoy something that he enjoys a lot, and I did. And I think I how do I say this? I think I gave him the opportunity to experience something for the first time again, because literally up until I had seen Revenge of the Sith as a full-grown adult, I
know what you're gonna say.
did not know that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader. I let out the biggest gasp when we saw it for the first time in 2020, and he was like, what? And I was like, what do you mean, what? Anakin is Darth Vader? And he was like, you didn't know that? And I was like, how am I supposed to know? I completely missed this my entire childhood. Like, in my mind, because I was so just unfamiliar with it all, I didn't know. I had no idea that eventually he would become Darth Vader. I had them. And, I mean, I guess technically I'm right that they are two separate characters. But, again, I really had no idea that one would turn into the other. And, they exist within one soul. So I think I gave him the chance to experience something for the first time ever again. So, you're welcome for that.
He's not saying anything.
But yeah, that's kind of how I was exposed to it, how I kind of ran with it, because I too was a big fan of Halloween, and I never got to dress up as a Jedi or a rebel pilot for Halloween growing up. So in the past 3-4 Halloweens, and in the past 3-4 years in general, I really just went full throttle, and I cosplayed a lot of characters from the franchise that I identified with in a couple different ways, whether it was representation or I liked what they stood for, et cetera, like Ahsoka Tano, Poe Dameron, Count Dooku. I don't fully support, just to make that clear, but I do think he is the best Sith of all time. What other characters? Senator Chuchi from the Bad Batch, who's just incredible. And yeah, I really, not to toot my own horn, but for a while, I think I was TikTok's Poe Dameron.
You were. You really are. Well, you are. You are in my heart. On my TikTok For You page, you are.
For 2 years, I really ran with that. I really feel like I made that my shtick for a while. And it's not that I'm embarrassed about it at all. I'm pretty proud of that.
No,
but
yeah,
I ran. Yeah. Thank you. I ran with that for a long time. But again, it's because I found so much comfort in that time where there was so much time to consume these types of franchises. So there was lots of comfort there in those types of characters, and just a want to kind of keep expressing how much of a fan I am, and just channeling that in a way that I find myself most creative in cosplaying and doing TikToks. And I'll plug myself now. You can find me on TikTok at Nicole Marisela, and on Instagram, Nicole.Marisela. Somebody took the original without any punctuation, so
they're whack.
Yeah, so that's what I have. So that's us. Hopefully that satiates anyone's desire to kind of get to know us better. That's kind of, I feel like it's going to be our shtick for the whole run. The fact that you've been in this for such a long time, and it's been with you for more than half of your life, which is incredible. And me, who still feels like I'm like new to the club, but also again, like I didn't really lose any time at all because of how much how passionate I am about this franchise and its characters.
I am glad that you like it, and that you were. I thank you, Doug, for introducing Star Wars to you, because I feel like growing up, it was kind of hard to like find friends.
Oh, I can imagine.
Like Star Wars, so I'm glad that, and not only have you, but like a full community of like other people who actually like Star Wars and like are not gatekeeping, kind of, I guess.
Right.
But
I agree, 100%.
It's like something that we can talk about and like bond over.
That's why we're here. I was gonna say before, when you were like, you don't like anything in normal amounts.
Like 3 years later, we're here with the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't, I mean, yeah, liking anything in a normal amount is just not, it's not built for, we're not
Us.
built for that. Yeah, we're not built for that. Only, you know,
We've been
not
talking
really-
about it. About this
Yeah.
podcast for a while. It just never came to fruition until now. And yeah.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to really talk about stuff that we're, you know, ready to just consume and share with others. So that's us. And I feel like now is the time to move on to one of my favorite shows that's currently in its run right now. I'm wearing one of my
Love your
favorite.
shirt.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that.
Thank you. I'm wearing my favorite clone on my shirt here. It's Hunter from
The Bad Batch.
When we open up in season 3, the first scene I find to be so horrifically diabolical because we see Hemlock again. Fuck Hemlock.
Hate him.
All the homies hate Hemlock. But there's a ship malfunction with a full team of troopers because they get struck by a storm, lightning, and they crash, and then some sort of unidentified wild creatures attack them, and you can hear that over the comms, and he's kind of just like, well, they're good as dead, let's just let them die.
He like sucks to suck.
Sorry, brothers, you're gone, you served your purpose, this is it,
They're
this is
they're
over.
expendable.
Right.
Whatever.
To me. So yeah, that first scene was kind of just like, oh yes, I remember how dark and diabolical the tone of Bad Batch in general can get. And then quickly we're just thrown into the fact that we're reminded of the fact that Omega is still imprisoned. And it's so it's such simple things, but I find it really artistic when they show us the passage of time. Things with like her hair, yeah, her hair growing, and the tally that she has on the little wall.
On the wall, yeah.
I find it really clever, and again, another really simple but really just useful, meaningful tactic with the water dripping down from the sink, and then we pan back over, and we can put together that time has passed. And another thing that I feel like is so everything is just so dark and gloomy about the Bad Batch. You know that there's lots going on to them, and it feels like they can never win. And I feel like another element that really plays into that super well is the music. There's like this really creepy piano music that starts playing out when we first see Omega again, and when she passes Crosshair. I was smacked in the face with that reminder. That Crosshair is also
he's
he's also
imprisoned as well.
imprisoned.
It's so sad. It's like a constant daily routine of just work and like you're like imprisoned and just like seeing him.
And it's so pointed that like at the beginning of the episode they cross paths every single day. And Omega like physically and emotionally tries to look for him, and he is so clocked out.
He's not there.
Like he is like the epitome of like the detached one of the group, and he doesn't really want to wear his emotions and his heart on his sleeve. But the fact that like there's just that on top of like no energy, it's just like, oh, he doesn't like it here either.
It's like his facial expression was just like defeated.
Yeah, that's the perfect word.
Yeah.
It's like defeated, because before it was kind of like, I'm part of the system, I know it, and I'm here to do a purpose, and I'm not here to argue. But now it's like, oh, that's all I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
Fuck, like that really sucks.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but like at the beginning of the routines, like them crossing path, like I think didn't she look at him almost?
Yeah.
Like she wanted to reach out, but then eventually just because it's so routine, she stopped.
Yes. Yeah. It's very pointed.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that when we get to that scene. But yeah, it's an incredible shift. And again, they don't have to say anything to each other. There's no dialogue that needs to be shared, but it's the fact that you know that they're like that there's something in them in their individual selves that is changing from beginning to end. And part of the routine for all clones, including Omega, but not really, is each clone must get a blood sample taken every fucking day. And what was revealed through the doctor's name, what's the
Emery?
doc- Emery?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, I totally
Her
got it.
sister?
Yeah, her sister. So the doctor, Emery, is set to take all the clones' blood samples, and she does it with Omega. However, Nalase is the one who's like discarding
Yeah.
of Omega's blood samples, of course, because her blood is quite valuable and it's set up for, you know, not so great purposes for the emperor and all of that. But I find it really pointed that like that's just like a thing that's happening every single day, that Emery thinks that she's
It's
getting the
happening,
blood,
yeah, but it's not.
the blood samples are being submitted, or maybe she, I don't know, or maybe she did know and she just didn't say anything about it.
Who, Emery?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, because Nalase was in charge of Omega. Like,
Right.
she kind of like took over when it came to Omega, and I guess they kind of just maybe didn't realize, or maybe they were just like, I don't know, brushing it off because Omega might be like just a regular clone.
Yeah. But again, they're keeping her for a reason, so maybe like is it like a long run thing? Do they think that one day her blood is just gonna magically change and then something's gonna show up or whatever? Like I'm not, you know.
I don't remember what episode it is, but she's there because of Nalase.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah. So that was really interesting, the fact that like Nalase tells her like, don't tell anybody, just cooperate.
She's so soft spoken.
That Tim Burton ass character. Let me
She's so soft spoken, and it's
Yeah.
just like you know that she cares so much about Omega.
Yeah.
And it's so heartbreaking to see them both there, stuck and imprisoned, and they're kind of
and she's
like,
still looking
yeah,
out for her,
yeah.
which is insane. It's like, you know that you're risking your life, you're risking Omega's life, you're risking, you know, the mission, Hemlock's overall mission, just to, you know, feel like you're still able to protect her, because again, you know how valuable Omega and her blood samples would be. And then I thought it was so cute and a little, again, it's just, oh my God, there's something so poetic about routine and also so heartbreaking about routine, because it's routine and you can't pull yourself out of it sometimes. The next thing that we see Omega doing, part of her routine, is collecting hay for her little
her Lula doll.
her Lula doll.
Her Lula
Yes.
Lula.
And I thought it was so cute that like that's a thing that she's doing to like keep herself going, because I feel like that it's such an innocent experience. It's very it speaks to her adolescence. Like she's technically older than her brothers, but you know
she's still a kid.
She's still a kid, and she's imprisoned, and she's trying to make something of it, and make something of herself that reminds her.
She's like trying to seek comfort in like such a cold, like desolate place, and like the only way that she can is just, you know, to make her own
doll. Oh, it kills me. And then she goes over to meet to feed Badger, which is super cute, but unfortunately, this is the point in time where she's injured and she refuses to eat. Do you remember?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. She gets hurt or whatever, and it's just she's the only one who like seems to care. And I think it was the droid, the security droid down there, that was like, oh yeah, you got hurt in battle, so whatever. And she's just like, we're not getting anything about it.
The only like sense of humanity in that place is Nalase and Omega.
Exactly. Kills.
I love when we get like new like pets or new like animals introduced into Star Wars.
Animals and like little stuffies. I feel like Disney would profit a lot if they made the hay.
They have like a little make your own Lula.
Really?
Yeah.
Where? Like
on their website.
Oh, that's the website though. Like
no,
if it
but
was
like
the parks though.
Oh no, yeah.
Like equivalent to like making your own lightsaber, like your own droid. Hello.
Make your own little, a little Build-A-Bear sort of.
Somebody tell Disney, write this down, because this would be so diabolical.
Don't say, because it's gonna be us.
It would be so lucrative.
Cut it out.
It would be a really lucrative thing. I'm sure Etsy shops are making them right now. If we really like, or like, you know, somebody has a file.
For the next episode, I'm gonna bring one. I'm gonna make one.
You're gonna make one?
Let's see how much time I have, and how much materials I can gather.
But yeah, on top of her, you know, her keeping hope alive in her adolescence, trying to keep, you know, things kind of innocent and hopeful, she then goes to Crosshair's his cell, and is kind of like, hey man, I think we should break out. And he's like, no. This is where we're meant to be. This is our destiny. Like, we kind of gotta just you know, let it be. So it's not that she gives up, but she kind of just like lets off the pressure a little bit to make an escape plan with him. Time passes by. We see more tallies on the wall. and we see progress with the doll that she's making with the hay, and then she finishes it, and then she gets it taken away.
I know.
I thought that Emery was like you know
You can't have attachments.
exactly.
Okay.
And then we see yeah, what is this, the Jedi Order? And then we see that kind of affect her.
It's like her only like saving grace. It's like the only
Yeah.
little bits of hope that she has, and it's kind of like just ripped
Yeah.
away from her.
Yeah, and it's really disappointing because I mean, before she gets it taken away, you kind of see the hope already dying because I think this is the part of the episode where Omega and Crosshair pass each other, and Crosshair is looking physically and spiritually for her too, and she just is clocked out because more and more and more weeks keep going, and I feel like she's definitely like she feels like I feel like she's losing hope at that point that the rest of the batch members are not going to find them like at all, or you know, even be able to rescue them. But and it's cute that you brought up the fact that, you know, we have more creatures and stuff like that always showing up, because I think Badger was the one who kept Omega going regardless of, you know, all the adults telling her what she has to do every single day, day in, day out, and she, you know, she can't think bigger than she, you know, as she wants to. So she's like cleaning her wounds, and she finds some sort of like ointment or something. That's what it looked like to me, to clean Badger's wounds.
Badger was definitely like very fussy, very
Yeah.
kind of violent at the beginning, just because
Yeah.
of like the nature of the animal. But then over time, like she warmed up to Omega,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, oh, like we're friends.
Yeah,
We're
and I feel like that
besties.
could be indicative of like human to human
Yeah.
relationships. You know what I mean? Like if you can, like if Omega has so much heart and soul um, for creatures like Badger, you know, it could happen. You know, they could make their escape. You know, and it hurt. I wrote this down. That Omega still, she tries again to tell him, hey, we should get out of here. And he says these two lines that really like hurt my soul. He says, "Don't risk anything for me. I belong in here."
Oh my god.
It hurt. It hurt so much, and I was like, "What do you mean by that?"
He's lost it. He's lost all hope. It's like it's gone.
Yeah, and
for
I
him.
wonder
It's
if
like-
that, but to a sense, I wonder if like he actually believes that,
I think he does.
or if he feels like he needs to be saying that to like keep a low. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think that he feels like that.
Yeah,
Like,
and that hurts.
Yeah.
Again, because you know he's already the detached one of the group, and this and this and this. But to think of yourself so lowly and so like insignificant, we gotta get you out, brother. We gotta get you out like that. Nobody should be seeping down to that level of like their self-worth. But then we get Hemlock kind of pressing on Nalase and threatening her and being like, hey, the Emperor's coming soon, so if you keep fucking around with my shit, the Emperor's not gonna be happy about that.
With their project, right?
Exactly. And while that's happening, Omega attacks this security droid and sets Badger free, and that's kind of the beginning of their like her attempt to escape. So that's going on, and after Hemlock kind of like puts the heat on Alisei, he catches her, and he tries to threaten her, and he tells her about the crash in the beginning of the episode, and that, you know, it just. I think it was an intimidation tactic where he's kind of like, hey, like, you want to know about this weird crash thing that happened and how there was no survivors? Yeah, keep it up. Yeah, keep it up, and that might just be you. And like, you know, it's an empty like kind of threat because again, he knows how valuable she is, but it's such an expose of like the power play between all these adults and this little girl who's like, okay, I'm still gonna find my way out.
Yeah.
No matter what. And Emery is there trying to like de-escalate the whole thing, and I'm just like, you are not getting paid enough to be this much of a bootlicker.
Oh my God.
There's just no way. There's just no way. But yeah, Hemlock is even threatening, like if Omega does anything else, he'll hurt Crosshair because he knows that like that's her pressure point. Which again, just really gross. But you know, anything to please the Emperor. And then we finish out episode 1 with Emery giving back her little doll.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, so like for a minute I was like, man, if I fuck this up, like this is
There is like a sense of maybe not that all hope is lost with Emery.
Exactly. So
Because Omega was telling Crosshair, like, we can trust her, but like Crosshair was like, no, we can't.
and they both have their, I mean, it makes sense on both sides because again, Omega's seeing the two of them as like her brothers and sisters, you know what I mean? But you know, Crosshair is seeing it as okay, she still has a job to do, and if that compromises us, she's not gonna care. Like she's gonna keep doing her job. But yeah, overall, episode 1, I feel like it was a really interesting way to start off without the batch as a collective group. Because again, they're all kind of dispersed and we are all seeing them kind of go through their own thing, but like having a hunterless and a wreckerless episode, damn,
I felt isolating.
exactly. And I think that's the point of the episode, to feel super isolated. So yeah, it was a really cool setup between Nalase and Emery too, again, because they're starting to teeter Emery more than Nalase, because obviously Nalase has her stance, but like the fact that they're showing more that they're on Omega's side more than we think, like I really like, it wasn't such a dull start. It was like it felt like we were in the middle of it all,
Right, yeah.
you know. So those were kind of my thoughts on episode 1. Just you know, it was really telling. It was really telling of how much routine can break you down and how much this like one, you know, alliance can keep you going, no matter if it's human to human or human to creature. You feel?
I mean, I was just thinking about like when we first were introduced to the Bad Batch, like the first episode felt so nostalgic.
Yeah.
It was very like a continuation of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But this is like it's on its own. It's like its own thing.
Yeah, it's just turned into this big like it's its own independent, unique story, and it's unraveled and again in so many different avenues, which is insane.
It's sad that it's coming to a close.
Yeah, the beginning of the end. That's really what I felt like what was when I was watching it. I mean, obviously because that's the point of it all. But yeah, I watched the first episode and after that I was like, wow, this is really the beginning of the end. This is.
I hate when like we get new things and it's just like. It's gonna end. Like
and it's over.
Yeah.
And then we're done. Passing into episode 2, we see that I was just complaining that we didn't have Hunter and Wrecker for episode 1, or I was pointing out that we didn't have them. But we see them at the beginning of episode 2 being mercenaries. Very interesting enough. I mean, you gotta
do something.
Yeah, you gotta get that money and you gotta get that intel somehow, some way. And they're doing it for this specific reason to kind of get intel on how to get a route to Omega.
Yeah.
So they get some coordinates and that supposed to lead them to Hemlock's lab. And oh my god, I wrote down that when they get back into their ship, we see a shot of Tech's goggles.
Oh, stop!
The shot of Tech's goggles. I
don't want to talk about it.
It solidified that my fiance was even like, "Oh, he's not coming back, is he?" I was like, "You didn't have to say it out loud," but
I was like, "It's not. We don't know. Like, we don't know for sure." And then I feel like when we saw the goggles, I was like,
I feel like it.
I don't know.
I feel like it's so like it's like synonymous to like when you see photos of belongings of people who are no longer with us, like that type thing. Yeah. So I was like, that's why I was kind of like, oh, this means he's not here anymore. Like this is all we have.
I'm gonna start crying.
I know the fact that like that's all they have left of him, and then we get the Lola shot as well of Omega Lola. Like oh my god, like
it's like they're both not there. Like it's just a reminder that they're gone.
Oh. but then we see that Hemlock's lab was in fact destroyed. So now it's kind of just like, okay, like how. I mean, obviously they're keeping this thing low because this is a very nefarious project that they're trying to like have succeed. So it's just kind of I mean, even Hunter and Wrecker are kind of like, is this real or like or like were we just sent like faulty coordinates?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and like they run into these regs.
Yeah. Who are voiced by
go ahead. Who are
Daniel Logan.
Isn't that
he came back?
Yeah, it's so
voicing,
sweet.
like little Bobas.
Yeah, I found that
Not
so.
Bobas, but,
Yeah, but I found that so cool that they got Daniel Logan to come back to voice these regs that Hunter and Wrecker run into, and they're like, well, if you want to find a path to the clones who might have survived this whole thing that shut down, I guess you could follow us. So they're walking through these like forests and they're telling them like, hey, like be careful of these vines, this and this, these like live creatures. And of course our big old himbo boy Wrecker
just bumps into one.
Bumps into one, picks a fight. So that that was like a good scene of like, oh yes, our big himbo boy is still being a big himbo boy and taking on any creature that comes his way. Chops off that he chops off the limb of the creature, like that severed leg in the Bronx subway station. If anybody, I'm gonna go off on tangent for 2 seconds. If anybody knows about that story or doesn't know about that story, you should. It's a recent event that happened in New York City. There was a severed leg somewhere in the Bronx that like traveled for miles on a subway track undetected.
Yeah. It's always the Bronx.
It's always the Bronx. This felt like equivalent to that. But anyway, going back into Star Wars, they're brought back to the Regs campsite, and one of the Regs steps up and is like, okay, we should help them find Omega. So they're like, okay, fine, I guess we could trust y'all. Wrecker grabs a gonk from the Marauder, a gonk droid. I think that was the first time we saw them in the season so far, in episode 2.
I think so. Gonky.
Gonky droids, little appearance from them. And what else happens? So yeah, while they're doing that, while they're trying to just like gear up and all that, the other regs at the campsite, they're kind of just like wary about the whole thing. They're like, man, like we gotta look out for ourselves. I don't know, like should we trust them?
Yeah.
This and this. So while Hunter, Wrecker, and this other reg are away, these two try to venture out to the Marauder, and I'm like, oh, fucking phenomenal. They're gonna get this shit hijacked again. Like, how many times?
Can't keep losing it.
You gotta keep a tally. You gotta keep a tally of how many times the Marauder has been hijacked, because shit, y'all, they do not have any
luck with it. It's actually kind of sad that they have to be like, we have to think about ourselves.
I know.
And
like it's not selfish.
I know.
It's like
it's if it's not us, if it's not them, it's us or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Type eat or be eaten type shit. So yeah, no, it's completely understandable. But again, at the same time, I was like, fuck, man, like please don't steal the Marauder from them. Like they've had enough.
They've gone through a lot. They can't lose
too much
shit now.
So yeah, while this data is being collected from the gonk droid, the regs go ahead and pick up the batch, and the reg, much to my surprise, because again here I was thinking like, oh man, they're gonna run off with this thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but then when they're in trouble and they're fighting off the other vines and all that, they come and pick them up. So yay. And then the mother, I called these little creatures with their vines I call the demodogs, because they have these they have these like
the vines.
Yeah, they have this. They open and they have these like these rows of teeth that are just terrifying. So as they're trying to get away and they're getting this data collected for the possible route to Omega, they take down this mother of the demodogs and they blow it up. So yay, success! They ran away. And we find out that Hemlock has in fact transferred his lab and his experiment, so that was real. That the other lab site was compromised. And then we finish off the episode with the batch kind of bonding with the three Regs,
Yeah.
which I thought was really cute. Like they're still like pseudo dads even when
When they're
their
not.
primary their primary
When their primary baby's
isn't there exactly. And they promised them to drop them off at a remote planet. And I think it was the planet that they were on.
Pabu.
Right, there you go. They didn't say it. They didn't say Pabu, but I feel like
Yeah.
yeah.
A peaceful island.
Exactly. So I think for this one, for this episode, again, we're reinforcing what we already knew, that Hunter and Wrecker and the whole batch just know how to be there for Regs and their fellow clones, which I think is really really sweet, and that they won't give up. They're not giving. And that, like, again, the audience knows something that Omega doesn't know, and it's the fact that Hunter and Wrecker are in fact still trying to find them, no matter how much time has passed. And they even mentioned that, oh, maybe we'll like hop on and try to see Rex and Echo. So I'm like, I'm waiting for that too.
We need to see them.
I'm waiting for that. I really am. So we'll see what happens there. But within these 2 episodes, again, I feel like so many things are just being reinforced, and again, the overall message of hope is still going.
It's still there, yeah.
Which is really amazing. Sliding into episode 3, we are back with Omega and Emery, 2 little sisters on a new base, with lots more a lot more trooper presence everywhere.
Yep, everywhere.
So again, you can kind of tell the tone there. Like everything is super hush hush. They cannot mess this up. They need to keep everything on the low. Everything needs to be off the grid in order to continue with the experiment at hand. And Emery is still kind of willfully like ignorant to all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like she just chooses to kind of like block out the fact that like there's so much more presence around. And Hemlock shares some wonderful news that they're gonna have an unexpected guest appearing. So
it's gonna be Palpy.
Exactly. So Nalase knows this. So Nalase tells Omega like, hey, you will be in danger if Emery actually does test your blood. So make sure that doesn't happen, and you gotta escape. This was the moment. Again, Nalase was always on her side from the beginning, but this was the moment where she was like, if you do not leave now, before Emperor Palpatine gets here, you are finished.
It's like I said earlier, like she's so soft spoken, but this was like a sense of urgency for her. She was like, no, like even in like the slow softness, it was so urgent and like so important that she told Omega this.
So Omega really like takes her up on it. She's like, oh, okay, got it. So she tries to distract Emery, asking about like, who is the surprise guest, and blah, blah, blah.
She like plays it cool.
Exactly, and Emery's kind of like, you can rest now. Like, go back to your room. Your tasks are done for the day. So she's like, okay, cool. And then like, as Nalase has instructed her to do, Omega takes Emery's data pad to see what she can kind of figure out. So Palpatine, he shows up. He's there for the Project Necromancer, is what they call it. And I'm just like, ew, this sounds like, we already know what the project is, but it just sounds disgusting.
It's like official once they said it.
Yeah. So this is the time where this is the moment where they're like, yeah, these are the clones that that he set up in the sequels. I literally wrote down
and the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Paps clones from the sequels. Yeah, it's happening. We are finally moving forward.
Made me, like, I might be jumping it, but like this made me think about the frozen Jedi in Obi-Wan.
Oh, yes, exactly. Oh my God, yeah, that was another time where I was like, is this what I think it is? Are we, So yeah,
they're like placing little bits and pieces everywhere.
Yeah, and this just made me more excited because I was like, oh my God, we're finally going into this, timeline. So very, very exciting. So my favorite part of this entire episode was when Omega literally is like on her mission, on the run, and this little mouse droid is just plotting the shit at her, and she kicks it.
It's like,
she said, actually, not today, little op. And he like throws a tantrum when the doors close. Oh, it was amazing. That's my favorite part, and I identify with her the most because those little things are the OG snitches. Like, I think I have it in my thing here. It's like, snitch.
Snitch.
Yeah, from Spider-Verse. That happens, and she she goes back to see Crosshair in order to escape once more, see if this plan can actually take off. So she just tells him, like, you know, try to distract the guards, this and this and this, and he's like, fine, whatever. He breaks free. It worked out.
Yes.
Like,
you see what happens when you just listen to Omega.
When you listen to your sister, like and again, like, he's been so defeated this entire time for these past 3 episodes, but you can tell that he still has it in him, and it takes that one person, his sister, to bring it out of him. So that happens, but during his combat, he, like, after he's done fighting off these guards, he, like, kind of winces a little bit because his hand, like, is still, like, it's not like it used to be. Yeah, it's in his name. Like, it's, you know, like, his namesake is kind of, like, faltering because he's still so injured. But, you know, they try to carry on, and while that's happening, Emery tries to go to Omega's cell, finds her not in there, her cell. Yeah. So she catches her and Crosshair, and she's kind of just, like, trying to, like, mediate and, like, you should go back to your rooms and not cause trouble.
Like, don't worry, like, I won't talk about it.
Exactly.
Like, no one will know.
So love that Crosshair stuns her. Like, finally, like, let's have her just sit down for a second. But security is already on the way. She already called. Notified, yeah, she already called for them. Snitch number 2.
Snitch number 2.
So then we cut to Palpatine, who's just fluffing up on Hemlock, telling him that he thinks, you know, or that he's just looking forward to this experiment coming to fruition. And Hemlock is just so, like, I feel like Hemlock just had this look on his face, like, oh yeah, promotion in the bag, it's all coming together. Love this for me. You know what I mean? So while he's, like, just getting his ego stroked the fuck out of, he's informed that Omega and Crosshair are trying to break free, and then they actually do become free. So he releases the lurkers to go find them, and he really, like, at this point, he just doesn't care if they get killed. He says, I want them dead or alive at this point. And then he accuses Nalase of helping them escape and quarantines this woman, just, like, isolates her, puts her in this, like, little isolation room. So the hunt is now really on. And, I wrote here that there was a tech mention for Plan 72. Crosshair's like, let's try Plan 72, and that's another mention for tech. I wrote, I am crying.
I cry.
I cry. I literally cry. So
on the paper, just like a teardrop.
A tear. It's just a wet stain on Plan 72. So they try to execute this plan. The troopers find them, and Crosshair just unfortunately just cannot shoot like he used to. He's still quite injured. So we see Badger coming to save Omega, and I was telling this to my fiance. We see her at the end of the episode before, right? And she's, like, howling into the wind. She's set free, la la la. And I'm like, well, I'm never gonna see that wild creature ever again, because
never.
Yeah, clearly I was proven wrong, because she comes back and saves Omega. So Omega stuns the pilot of the ship that they're hijacking. And I just wrote that she looks so cool, like, in the action of it all. She's really, again,
she's determined.
Exactly. We already saw so much of her feeling lost and hopeless, but also holding on to the bit of adolescence she has left, turning into now just, like, a leader of her own little, like, rebellion, her own little resistance, which is really just, it almost brought tears to my eyes just seeing how cool she looked piloting this thing. And they manage to get Badger onto the ship. Love that. They have a new little creature with them. They have A-Wings following them, so...
Editing Nicole here, and what I really meant to say was Alpha Class V-Wing Starfighters. My apologies to the real Star Wars fans who clearly know their ship history a lot better than I do. Now back to the podcast.
That is just turning the heat on everything. And again, while this is all happening, her blood is finally getting tested. Mm-hmm. This is the thing that Omega was trying to distract Emery the entire episode of, to make sure that because it's like a ticker almost, like there were so many samples, like, on this, like, clock looking thing, and, like, it finally gets to her as well. It's like, all this chaos.
It's nerve-wracking because it's like
a timer. It's like, you know. So we see that it's finally happening, and everybody pretty much at that point finds out this is the first time that her blood is being tested, and this is pretty vital stuff for our mission. So Hemlock is all, you know what? We gotta keep her alive. forget what I said before. We got to keep her alive because we need her. And that's when Omega and Crosshair finish this episode, jumping to light speed, or hyperspeed, excuse me. So my thoughts on this one is that I feel like it's just a formula of like the third or fourth episode of anything is when things really do kick off. And I'm really glad that they broke free. I knew that Crosshair had it in him, despite his injuries, despite his whole, dude, I'm dirt. I'm lower than dirt. Like I can't do anything about this.
Just needed a little push.
Exactly. Always need a little push. Scared as fuck for Nalase and Embry now a little bit too. I also wrote Stan Badger because she came back.
Yeah.
And,
I knew she would come back.
Yeah, and I love the dynamic between Omega and Crosshair, and the fact that they came together so harmoniously, despite Omega kind of just like pegging, and he's really resistant at the beginning. So to see that come together and see them outside of those walls, oh my lord, that felt very, very. It felt like the payoff was just so worth it.
Yeah.
Sliding into episode 4. The ship that they hijack breaks down in hyperspeed, so they have a crash landing. Meanwhile, Nalase is just straight up imprisoned. He and Hemlock goes and confronts her, and what I thought was funny during this scene, I was distracted for like 2 seconds because we saw troopers in like trench coats. I was distracted by their fashion a little bit, so I wrote slay, like, okay, new coats, very cute. Well, Hemlock is just like throwing the heat down on Nalase. So I don't believe they named the planet that Omega, Crosshair, and Badger end up on. So. It's an unnamed planet, but they do their best to go in disguise and try to get another ship or get on the next ship out to keep their freedom pursuit going. And she tries to bribe this like ticket agent, and this ticket agent is like, "I'll take you up on your offer if you have 30K."
It's like reminiscent of like Solo. Always
right.
Like, come on.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought of. So the fact that she's trying to like hustle away for 30 credits is like, damn, like now we're on a mission. So they go and sneak by to this nearby cantina to hustle for credits, and I love that again we just see all aspects of how smart Omega can be. She knows how to fucking.
She's the Queen's Gambit. Whenever she plays that game, I'm just like, she's
my Queen Gambit.
No, she plays the Queen's Gambit. That's the chess.
Oh.
You've never seen the Queen's Gambit, the show?
Never seen the Queen's
what?
Gambit. I thought I've never seen the Gambit. She is the Gambit. So the Gambit is the game that she plays.
The Queen's Gambit. That's the chess move.
I understand.
It's the chess play.
I completely understand.
But it's just that she's so clever. She's so smart. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And she's like not afraid to do it.
Yeah, she's playing against like this fucking Trandoshan too, which is like one of the scariest creatures in my personal opinion. I cannot stand to look at them. If I saw one in person, I would not look at them directly in the eyes. Yeah, they look like towering freaks. So then, of course, we see a fucking imp enter, and Imperial enters, and he challenges Omega. So while that's happening, troopers find their crashed ship. Afterwards, Omega beats the Imperial captain, and she wins 20K credits. We love it. So
we stand.
Yeah, we stand.
She knows what she's doing.
That is the Queen's Gambit. And what's more is that even though, I mean, this is very telling on real life, right? And what happens in politics and in law enforcement. Even though Omega wins this 20K credits, the captain is like, but you do realize you're playing an illegal game. Please, you know that you're playing an illegal game here, so you must give me half of the earnings that you just got. So fine, whatever. She gets, he charges her 10 credits for gambling, or else her and Crosshair are gonna get arrested. So what she's left with, what she earned was 35K minus 10.
She still has like a little bit.
Exactly, she still has some change to go. They lose Badger, of course. A local kid on this planet is like, listen, if you want to know where he is, it comes with a price.
Money.
Give me $5,000 and I'll let you know where they went. And we find out it was the fucking Imperial captain that took Badger. So everything felt like a complete setup. So did the Gambit get their queen? No. Everybody lost.
We're using that correctly.
I'm gonna keep doing it incorrectly on purpose. And even though they're out and they're free, Crosshair still insists like, let it go. She is gone. We gotta move on. So Omega of course goes on this soliloquy about like, no, we can't leave her. Like she's part of our family. Like nobody gets left behind. And I very much admire that about her. So she goes, if you want to leave and get off this planet, like, do it by yourself. I'm gonna find this creature. And then he's like, like it's a very brother sister type thing. Like, okay, I guess I'll stay. So the Imperial captain catches them trying to look for Badger, and he pretty much demands that Omega just gives all the credits if they want to keep this creature. So then Crosshair starts blasting. He starts blasting, right? He's like, actually, yeah. So he just starts blasting on these people, right? So I write here that all creatures were locked up. Oh, because they go. Was it like a base or like a ship?
It was a cargo.
A cargo ship. No.
Like a dock.
There we go.
Dock. When I was watching it, I felt like the sounds felt like it was Jurassic Park.
Right.
And it reminded me
right?
from the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
No, like the sounds from the creatures, but it felt like it was very reminiscent of like the first Jurassic Park, like the beginning when they're like when they're all in the crates and the Velociraptors are like inside trying to get out, and then they escape. And then they start blasting.
Everything goes. I mean, it's a great action sequence, and I think it was great because then they let all the creatures that were locked up on this dock free. So they steal this cargo ship, and then the Imperial captain gets eaten.
Yes,
poetic. It's like poetry. It rhymes. So Hemlock is informed again that they have, that they actually have escaped off this planet because they were trying to keep track of them through their other ship or something, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. So he knows that now that they're heading to a remote location. So they get to this remote location, and at the end, they are finally reunited with Wrecker and Hunter.
Oh my gosh.
And I wrote down a line that Hunter says. He said, we never stopped searching. Four simple words, and it just means everything. Oh, look,
I'm gonna start crying. I watched and I was legitimately tearing up.
I was so happy. It was quite the reunion, but the last shot when Crosshair comes off the ship,
it was so bittersweet.
It was such an estranged brothers family type thing. So I'm really interested to see how it picks up in episode 5, because now we're seeing them in each other's vicinity.
Yeah.
So now I'm just kind of like, okay, we have a somewhat happy ending in episode 4.
Yeah.
They went through the shits to get there. This entire episode, losing a bunch of credits and dealing with Jurassic Park creatures.
It's so bittersweet because it's like you have this beautiful reunion. Like we've been waiting for this for so long, for like literally a year.
Right, but again, there's
it's
again
so
they didn't
tension.
have to say anything to each other, but it's so it's very tense, and there's such an estrangement between the brothers, between the batch. So I don't know. I'm nervous. There's a lot of trepidation when it comes to just how sweet this little family reunion is gonna be.
There's definitely gonna be a lot of work.
Oh,
a lot of work.
Lots of things to unpack for sure. Like, there's so much trauma being held in captivity, as well as being without someone that you feel you're most whole with. Like, there's just a lot of helplessness on both ends. So I'm hoping that they kind of just mend that. Obviously, it's going to take time, but I hope that they mend that all together as a unit.
I think they will eventually.
Yeah.
It's going to definitely take some time.
Yeah.
But Star Wars is always about hope, so it's I hope that it will be mended.
Truly, sincerely. And I hope that everyone enjoyed this very special first episode of Naboo York City.
Yay!
And will join us for episode 2. We will be covering all things Star Wars cosplay. We will have our very first special guest. I'll keep that under wraps until the episode 2 comes out. So after that, we will continue to cover the rest of the season of Bad Batch season 3. Do we have an outro?
I don't think so, but I'm excited because we love cosplaying.
We love cosplay, and I'm really excited to talk to the person that we are scheduled to speak with, because she has a lot going on.
Yeah.
And is a wonderful, wonderful, crafty cosplayer, just as yourself. So
Thank you.
we'll figure out a catchphrase as time goes on. But this is Naboo York City, signing off.
We're signing off? Out?
Signing out.
Signing
Off.
off.
Signing off.
That's it.
That's
Cut.
it. That's good.